again? I looked on the flyer, but it doesn't.
Ryan Cox.
Ryan Cox, okay. So he's going to be presenting on various topics about creation versus evolution. And so he's got a mobile museum, so various dinosaur artifacts and things of that nature. And this is the setup. So if you can make it out there, that'd be really great. I think very great for our students to learn some of those things or be reminded of them if you already know. And that'll be each night, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Is it at 7, Dad? 7. So 7 o'clock. And would love to have a good group show up there. A couple other things to keep in mind. We didn't get to talk about this a lot, but we ended up able to get the back room at Haas's for this right after church today. So if you want to come and just have a little bit of fellowship time, we wanted to take Mike and JoAnn there and just have a little time to talk, have lunch. So that's available. And we told them we'd get there anywhere between 11:30 and 12. So we have plenty of time to talk and spend a little bit of time here after service and then go over there. So as we've been saying, we have Mike and JoAnn Noel in today, and we're very grateful that they're able to come and give us an update on what has been happening and what the future plans are. And I know they would want us to keep praying for them because you have direction. You want direction from the Lord on what is next in life. So we'll be definitely keeping you in our prayers. We're very appreciative of all your work and the things that the Lord has accomplished through you. So we're going to have a word of prayer now, and then I'll turn it over to Mike. And I think JoAnn may be helping with the presentation too. So looking forward to it. Precious Father, what a beautiful day you've created for us. Every day of life is new and precious because it is a gift from you. And we have precious people all over this planet that you love, and so many have never even had the opportunity to know about Christ. And so we lift up and highly honor those who have made it their life work to bring that wonderful message of salvation to people in even the remotest places. And help us to remember that we are all being sent by you to share the good news and witness as to what you have done in our life to people who are around us and perhaps hurting, perhaps just stuck in lack of understanding because they've never heard of the light of Christ. And so we ask your blessings on that. We pray that you would help the Monroeville Church to have a successful meeting with Ryan, and that the children and the families that come to hear will be informed and strengthened in their faith. We see the direction that our secular society is wanting to go, and we know that it doesn't look healthy, and we pray that we could remain firm and faithful to you and to your word, and to live according to your teaching. And help us to do so with cheerfulness and great joy, expecting victory, and knowing that you love us and you have called us to love others. Father, we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, come on up.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Now look at all your smiling faces. We are so happy to be here this morning, and we want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to share with you. Please receive greetings from our CMF Tanzanian team. That consists of myself, Mike, Megan Moss, and her sister, Michelle Swy. So, 3 families now. We have been as many as 5 families on the CMF Tanzania team. We could share more about that some other time. But our team also Tanzanians, Noel, who is our center manager, and also Lulu Samueli. He and his wife are a church planter couple who have planted several churches, but Lulu is now on the leadership team, and he is responsible for church planter recruitments for the church planter training course. And again, we just say thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to share with you this morning, and I'll let Mike begin.
So just kind of a update. For the last probably 3.5, 4 years, Tanzania has been rejecting people applying for resident permits. We're required to do that every 2 years, and up until that time, we had no trouble. Mm-hmm. So in January, my permit was going to run out in March, and I started that process, wondering what would be the outcome of that. Mm-hmm. Because it wasn't because of religion. Mm-hmm. It's not because we're American. Mm-hmm. It's been any profession and from any country, mm-hmm. even Africans sent away and denied even to come into Tanzania and live. So in March, I received word that my permit was denied. We appealed that. And in August, mm-hmm. that was also denied. So we're not able to go back and work with CMF because the permit is connected to the organization that we apply to. So we can't go back with CMF. And so we've been wrestling with some alternative ways, praying and looking and considering other ways that we might get back into Tanzania, and eventually have just come with the idea that the door's been closed. So we will be transitioning out of CMF at the end of June. We're planning a trip back to Tanzania at the end of May to be able to just bring some closure to that and say goodbye, because when we left, we weren't sure. We were hopeful that maybe some way we would be able to go back and live, but that has been closed. So I just, through this all, God has been amazing. God's a God of peace. And when we were first in Tanzania, we were invited to a Super Bowl game, and there was 12 Americans there. And, because of time frame, the Super Bowl game would have been played like at 2 o'clock in the morning. So instead of going at 2 o'clock in the morning, they recorded it. And we had a breakfast. But the only way we could come is if we wouldn't listen to the news. So we couldn't know who won the game. So we're all there. One guy was connected to the game because his team was in there. The rest of us was just Super Bowl party, But he was in this emotional roller coaster, up, down. He actually left the room for a while. And in my mind, I'm thinking, buddy, this is over. This game is done. But he didn't catch that part of it. I didn't say anything. Well, in January, when I started to apply for that permit, that's what God reminded me of the Super Bowl game. And the peace just has been with us. Now, there is still sadness. There is still the emotions, and May is going to be a pretty emotional time in many different ways. But overall, there's an amazing peace because that's who we serve, a God of peace. And so we're not sure what lies ahead. There's a good chance that we will probably start collecting Social Security in September. Not that that was our first choice, but it makes sense right now. I'll be 64, JoAnn will be 62. And what we're hoping to do is maybe try to connect with foreign communities and maybe even possibly Muslims. So we've moved to Greenfield, being more near to Pittsburgh environment. And then with this coming year, if we can do so, we're going to travel and maybe look at some other cities even, and finding maybe a possible Muslim community that we might be able to be a part of. We didn't go to Africa to work with Muslims, but God just kept moving us in that. We've been getting this training over the years for it, and so we feel like we want to use it for God. So that's where we're at, but we're just holding things very open, just letting God direct as we walk.
So each of excuse me, so each of us on the CMF Tanzanian team, as far as missionaries go, well, even the nationals, yeah, we all have a ministry focus. Mike will tell you more about has been adult literacy. And so, two very exciting things happened this last term within the literacy ministry. And actually, the first one I want to tell you about has a keystone connection. So, I am very proud to show you this booklet, Mimi and Dimi. Mithali ya Yesu kutoka Yohana Mtakatifu. What it says is the I am sayings of Jesus from the book of John. Well, if you will look at the illustrations, I would like to tell you that our very own Junia and Josephina Carnley were the artists for this booklet. I was so very pleased to be able to tell the Tanzanians, look, youth from one of our supporting churches in America actually took part in this project with me. Wanted to encourage them with that because, as we should well know, in God's kingdom, it doesn't matter how young you are, it doesn't matter how old you are. And I used to encourage the students in Tanzania all the time when they wanted to learn to read. It doesn't matter. You're not too old to learn something new. You can do this. And then also would encourage them from the Bible. Josiah was 8 years old when he became the king. And then for us elders, Abraham, he was 99 years old when he was circumcised. Oh, don't want to go there right now with that. And God said to him, continue to serve me and walk in my ways. So be blessed with those words. But this booklet was an idea that I had had for several years, thinking, okay, the I am sayings of Jesus, the repetitive, I am the gate, I am the light, which would be easy for new readers to learn because of the repetition, but also it would introduce them to the person, Jesus, the Son of God. And so with all those things in mind, we partnered together with the Carnley's daughters and Peter, our friend. We have these booklets printed, and now they're being used by our Tanzanian brothers and sisters. The other exciting news that I wanted to share is the new adult primer, which was originally printed in 1991 by Christian Literacy Associates out of Pittsburgh in Swahili. I was given permission to update it and reprint it. So that was accomplished in the summer last year, and we have had these printed, and they're ready for the church planters to use in literacy outreach. And also the exciting thing about this book is that also it introduces Jesus very simply but efficiently, and also tells God's story from creation all the way to ascension. So I think we should just clap for Jesus and for his workers. Yeah.
So before we ever left for Tanzania, we had opportunity to get some training in Bible storytelling. And that was really, we learned how to learn a Bible story, up to 13 verses in about 45 minutes and almost word perfect. And that really resonated in my heart. I was excited with this training and really took this to Tanzania knowing that it could be very helpful because that country's more literal, more oral than they are reading and writing kind of things. Not that they don't do that, but their culture is more that way, and storytelling. And so it became one of the major focuses of the training that I would do. So the students would learn Bible stories. I would train them how to do that, and then they would practice them in their devotional time throughout the training course. Well, I didn't know it at the time, but Martha and Amos were a couple that was trained, and Amos didn't like storytelling. It was work, and had to be taken to get it into your heart and mind. But I used to tell them, I said, look, if you go into a Muslim community, you don't have to carry your Bible because you have it here and here. And Martha and Amos went into a community that had Muslims, and Martha had learned how to sew clothes while she was in the training course. So she would sew little clothes for children, and then Martha and Amos would go and visit these different families. Till one day, when they went into the yard, the family come out with knives and chased them out of the yard because he carried his big old Bible with him. So he began to start thinking about this a little bit and thought maybe he needed to change a little bit of his approach. Mm-hmm. And him and his wife became very amazing Bible storytellers. And they began to incorporate that in their ministry. And they were doing it so well that I invited them to help me to teach the students that would come to the training course. And now I've turned that completely over to them. They do the training. They teach the Tanzanians how to do these stories. And then for the first week, they model how to do devotional time every day for that first week. I put a list of Bible stories starting from Genesis to Revelation on the wall. And the students have to sign towards a date, and then they have to give a devotion using the Bible stories. And so just amazing the change. That couple has been an amazing encouragement to us, and we're grateful for their hearts.
So as I shared, the new adult primer, Huamanga Unakuja, which means the light is coming, was printed back in the summer last year, and we were able to use it in the church planting training course that was held last fall. Then after that, I was able to hold 2 back-to-back weeks of workshops to introduce the new primer, and so grateful that Mike was able to get a special pass so that he could stay in Tanzania with me so that I could have this opportunity. So what I did was invite teachers, church planters, and also some church members that had been through the Week of Literacy training course to come back to the training center to receive the new primer and also to be introduced to the new primer. So what we did, I invited 2 different groups, so 2 weeks, but 2 different groups. What we did was we went through this book from cover to cover, and we just talked about it. If there were any questions, any comments, we could do that. The teachers actually practiced teaching each other. We divided up into groups, and they practice reading out loud to each other so they could listen to intonation, so that they could slow down or speed up, whatever the case may be. And that was very good for them. And also, we had some of the students put on a skit for everyone to show what is it like for an adult in Tanzania that cannot read nor write Swahili, the national language, and they're trying to raise a family. They're trying to work a job, but they don't have the skill of reading, writing. And I tell you what, there's a lot of shame connected with that, but they have to survive somehow. So that was very effective. And also something that I'm very pleased about is that each teacher made their own portable blackboard while they were with us to take home. Easy to carry on the bus, no problem. It was about yay big. So Mike and I bought the wood. That was provided through the literacy. The funds were provided through the literacy ministry. Mike cut the wood, but the teachers, each one had the responsibility to paint their own board. They painted both sides, blackboard paint color. Yeah, and Mike had the idea, what if they also put a coat of like clear varnish as the last coat that would kind of waterproof the board? Those boards take abuse out in the villages. So we did that, and so very pleased in that. And I also forgot to say another God story with this book. I put out an appeal to folks here in America for funds to cover the cost of printing 5,000 books. And in about nine days, I think it was, we together raised, I think, over $1,500. So if you were a part of that, I just say thank you again for that, because this is a very good tool now that will continue to be used in Tanzania.
So Peter and I have been training the church planter course for almost 9 years now. And he, a couple years ago, started saying to me, Kaka, which is the word for brother. Sorry. And we would use that a lot towards each other when we would talk to each other. It just became, I never did explain to him what it meant in English. I just left it go. But he would say, Kaka, you need to write this information that you're teaching down in a book. And he would say, and this was well before we were even knowing that we were going to have trouble. He would say, look, you might be here 5 more years or 10 more years, but when you leave, you will take this training with you if you don't write it down. And you can write it down, and then we can give it to our students. And so with much encouragement from him in January, I started that process. At that point, we were teaching the course, which is DBS and DMM. DBS stands for Discovery Bible Study. It's a mode of training where you help people to discover truth. So you teach them how they can go home and have their own quiet time kind of a thing and learn truth. And DMM stands for Discipleship Making Movements, which is a multiplying process, training people how they can multiply so that others can know about Jesus. So I wrote that book in Word document, and we had also started to teach a Life of Christ book, a Life of Christ training, and I also did that. And then Peter translated that, and he also had a little printing shop, so he took some pictures and incorporated them in with the booklets, and we made them, and then we began to hand them out to the students. And then we got to talking about the possibility of having an electronic copy, and that was beyond my skills. And so we talked with people from CMF, and there was a lady that said she could do it. So she ended up putting it in a PDF form, and so now I have it electronically that I can actually send it to people both in Swahili and in English.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And also there are examples of all of the booklets on the display table, so be sure to take a look and see what that looks like. So CMF Tanzania team, we plant churches, or train, I should say, we train church planters to plant churches where there are no churches. And that means bringing the husband, the wife, the young children to our training center for 13 weeks and to train them in different aspects of planting a church where there is no church. So, as Mike has shared, his ministry focus has been Discovery Bible Stories, Life of Christ, Discipleship Making Movements. Mine has been literacy. Also, our team of missionaries seeks to raise up Tanzanians, train them in the ministry that we are a part of, and then release it, turn it over to them, raise them up and let them carry on. So, as Mike has shared, church planters, Amos and Martha, they're doing Bible storytelling in the church planter course now. Peter, and Mike will tell you even more about Peter, but Peter who has been working with Mike, able to do what they have been doing together now. He is able to do himself. I have been working with a church planter couple named Marcelli and Elizabeth. They're kind of special to me and to us because they were in the 2012 church planting training course. That was our first year in Tanzania. So April marked 9 years for us to be involved with CMF Tanzania. So Marcelli and Elizabeth and I have worked together through these years, and mostly we have been team teaching. But when the new and we needed to then incorporate this into our week of literacy in the church planting training course in the fall course, what we did was I said, Marcelli, Elizabeth, you take over Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You teach. I was in the back of the class, just observing, available, if someone wanted to direct a question towards me. And then on Thursday and Friday, I got up in front of the class and introduced the new primer because it was the first time any of them had seen it. And then at the workshops, those 2 weeks, Marcelli and Elizabeth were there the whole time. So they've had, I'm going to say like 3 exposures now to actually using this new primer in the week of literacy class. So I'm happy to say that this past week, Marcelli and Elizabeth taught the week of literacy in the church planting training course for the first time all by themselves. So from the reports that we've heard back, it went well, but I'm going to ask that you would lift them up in prayer as you think of them. They are newer at this than, say, Peter is with Mike. They are quite capable, but and this part doesn't matter, but Peter is much more highly educated than Marcelli and Elizabeth. So they have to even face challenges themselves within learning and studying and teaching. So they're quite capable. I release them into God's hands, and we expect the ministry to carry on, and God will do great things. But just thank you for remembering them and praying for them.
So when we went back to Tanzania the last time, we had an invitation to return to Burundi. We had traveled there one other time and did some training. And so I said to this staff, our team, I said, look, I want to take Peter with me this time. I wanted him to be exposed to a different culture and new language, and I wanted him to see the heart of the Burundian Christians. And so the team said, yes, we think that's great. Now, I didn't take him to translate because he didn't know the language. I took him just to kind of observe. And when I told him that, once again, Kaka, this is amazing. It'll be the first time I get to hear you teach. We've been doing this for 6 years, Peter. What are you talking about? He said, no, Kaka. He said, every time we've done it, I've had to translate. And he said, you know what translation is? You hear and forget that, and you're thinking of the next. So it's in and out, in and out, in and out. So he said, this is going to be an amazing thing. And I'm like, okay. And so we went, and when we came back, there was a marked difference in Peter. Somehow this information finally caught root stronger than it ever had before. And he started realizing, and we started sharing more and more in these last 2 years about the concepts and understanding. We introduced him to coffee. Coffee grows there, but Tanzanians drink tea. They don't drink coffee. And so we would go to a coffee place and sit down and have a coffee and just talk for hours about just ideas and concepts. So that also in that last 2 years we were there, we visited the island of Zanzibar, which is part of Tanzania, but it's 98% Muslim. And so JoAnn and Peter and I went there twice over that time, looking for possible opportunities for ministry, for living there. And Peter has caught this. He went back in December by himself to investigate again. And we have now rented a room for 6 months for him to come and go there so that he can just be still looking for people of peace, trying to find out if he might try some business approaches so that he might be able to stay there on a more long-term basis and have a reason for being there. So he's there right now. I just talked to him yesterday. We stay connected probably every couple of weeks. We do video chats and stuff. And so that is highly encouraging that he has a heart for this. Peter grew up with not being around Muslims at all. He grew up in a pretty deep bush. He was barbaric, but he went on, learned Swahili to get through grade middle school and high school, and then went on and got a bachelor's degree in theology. And so then went on and got a teacher's certificate. So Peter has quite a bit of education, and he's very capable, but he has a heart for God. I've watched him over the years, and we're supporting him through our missions ministry money right now. He's getting travel expenses, and he's getting like a little salary. But I'm constantly telling him, Peter, this salary is not ministry money. It's your personal money. Use it for whatever. But he oftentimes, but I didn't have enough of money, so I just used it. I mean, he has a good heart. And so he has been an encouragement. And then, of course, he also did the church planter course training for the first time by himself this year. And so the other thing that was exciting, him and I talked about training Muslim families that were going to go into Muslim communities, a little bit separate from the church planter course, because the church planter course is not directed specifically towards Muslims. It's directed towards any culture. And we talked about trying to do that, but we never had opportunity. But in January, he did a 6-week training with 3 families that are wanting to go into Muslim communities. So he has taken the baton and is carrying it, and that is encouraging, And like I said, there's sadness, but there is great things to rejoice over in this, and we're more than willing to just step out of the way, because this isn't about us, it's about God. And when I told him that we weren't going to be able to come back, he said, Kaka, this is sad, but we work for a king. We work for a king, and he knows best. Yeah.
So I know you can rejoice with us in what we have shared, because yes, it's happened sooner than we anticipated. We thought, well, we would maybe do one more term at least before we would retire from CMF, but it's happening. The work is being turned over to the Tanzanians, as it well should, and you have been a part of that with us, and that's what we want to convey at the end, is to say thank you so much for the way that you have supported us through all these years. Sure, you have supported us financially, monthly. Some of you have even given over and above that amount. Not only that, I want to say thank you to the youth, that you have taken on special projects. You've collected money. You've helped to buy the Bible story coloring books and the fat crayons that little hands are able to use, and the Uno cards. I had so much fun passing those out to some of our workers' children, and even to our neighbors. Remember, last term we moved into town, so we had new Tanzanian neighbors, and I passed out those things to their children. They were so excited. So again, thank you for those special gifts. And then also I want to say thank you to your pastors, Jason and Patrick, and your families. You reached out to us, emails, Facebook messages, phone calls, all of these things that you have done to minister to us has blessed us, and we hope we have been a blessing. I hope we've been able to minister to you, and I know for sure you have blessed and ministered to the Tanzanians. So thank you all so much for what you have done, what we have done together to build God's kingdom. And Yeah, I think that's all I have to say.
So, in the Bible, we're told Paul uses the analogy of a body and connects believers with that concept that, some of us are fingers, some of us are eyes, some of us are toes, some of us are hands, some of us are different parts of the body, but none of us is a whole body in itself. We need each other, we rely on each other, and so we've always felt like what we have done has only been one part of it. It's not the whole. The whole is, everybody. I remember once, before one of my trainings, I got word that a 10-year-old boy gave some of his birthday money to us. And when I went into the church course that morning, I said, I want you to understand that people that stand behind us. And today I got word that a 10-year-old boy is giving money so that we can train you. And that just caught these families by surprise. And so, it's not about us. It's about Jesus and about the body and the way that he works. And, it's all of us working together to accomplish something. So it's not really what we have accomplished as JoAnn and I, but what we have accomplished as the American Christian believers, as the Tanzanian Christian believers, and as us working all together. And so, we rejoice in that. And so, as we kind of ride off into the sunset or whatever you want to say, there are still opportunities with CMF if you're interested in. There are a couple different things. Certainly you can continue to be involved with the work in Tanzania, and there's also one of the things that I would like to encourage some of our partners would be to consider taking Peter on and just be supporting him on a regular basis so that he could continue to do what he does. Peter has a little small business, but it's not enough for him to be able to do the travel that he does. It takes him 2 days to travel from his home to Zanzibar Island, and that means he's got to stay over, and so he's not able to do those things on his own. And so, that would be an encouragement. And then also there is a family out east in Pennsylvania who is raising support to go to the Ivory Coast
Through CMF.
And they're what?
5 children.
5 children. So they're in that process. So they're one of many missionaries from CMF that could also be connected with and encouraged. And so all I'm trying to say is that there are other opportunities, and you guys have a wonderful missions heart, and so just putting those before you, but you might have some of your own even, but we're just grateful for the ways that God just continues to bless all of us because of him, because of Jesus. All this happens because of Jesus. No other reason at all. So, again, I just want to say thank you. There's going to be a video during the church service that we would have played now, but we're just going to do it in the church service. But it's just a celebration video of just helping you to understand what you've been a part of and what you have accomplished in the times that you've been involved with us. So JoAnn wants me to remind you that it's only 5 minutes, because she says people get nervous when you tell them a video. They might think it's an hour long or something.
That's more like a video clip.
So we're actually willing to take any kind of questions or comments that you might have.
Yeah, we have till about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The Muslims that are, say, for example, Zanzibar, they tend to be a different people group, different language, same language?
Yeah, that's a good question. Zanzibar was influenced by the Arabic trade, slave trade. So there's a heavy history of that and a heavy influence by the Arabic. because of sultans that lived on that island and controlled it for times. But surprisingly, Swahili is the language. However, Peter
said it.
just told us, he says, I feel like a missionary, he said, because this Swahili is a little different than what
Yeah.
I'm used to.
Yeah,
So there's
yeah.
some dialect differences.
Yeah,
You know, Swahili has some roots in Arabic. Some of its language has Arabic words or roots to it. So, but he's able to communicate, but it's not pure in his idea of Swahili. So, yeah, I guess from a people group standpoint, they would just be considered, you know, the Zanzibar Muslim people group.
And I'll add to that, within the peoples that live on Zanzibar Island are unreached people groups, considered so by the Joshua Project. Within the people group living on Zanzibar Island, they are considered unreached. There is not a significant presence of Christians and impact felt on the island. And I think Mike did say it's over 90% Muslim on the island. So a lot of work to be done. But surely needing this discipleship making method, movement method approach, because, yeah, they will respond better
But
to that
ethnically,
way.
the Arab aren't there anymore?
Not technically from that standpoint. We don't see Arabs there. What we
Some Indian.
What we do see is that Zanzibar Island is a very big tourist island. So lots of foreigners go there. So the Muslims are very open to foreigners, you know, because that's where they get their livelihood a lot of. So they're very tolerant and very kind. What we've saw, very good interaction. But there's two other smaller islands, and Peter in December went to one of them called Mafia with another Tanzanian who wanted to live there. And he told me, he said, Kaka, it's a very dark island, very dark. They're very kind of protective. You know, they don't have the tourists there. So anybody that goes there that doesn't belong there, they're suspicious of them. And so he really had a sense of being uncomfortable there for maybe the first time.
Yeah.
So this guy that he went with, he told me that he ended up getting arrested. He was released, but he was arrested, and I don't know what he did or what he said, but he was going there to try to convert Muslims, and that's not always a good thing if you do it in the wrong way.
Yeah.
It can be very challenging. Yeah.
Okay.
So, just as we're talking about Muslims, let me just clarify a couple of things. In Arusha, there is Indian culture there. People that have come over when Europe Great Britain had control of India and Tanzania, so they migrated there. So now there's Indian culture, people that are third and fourth generation that live there. But they retain their language and their Muslim culture or Hindu culture or Sikh culture, and they're all through Arusha, and they speak English, they speak Swahili, and then they speak whatever their native Indian language is. So
And
those,
the Tanzanian citizens.
yeah, they're Tanzanian citizens, but those individuals were the people that I tried to interact with because they could speak English, and they were mostly shopkeepers. So I could go in and sit in their shops and talk with them and visit with them. And then there are also the black African Tanzanian Muslims. And so you can walk down the street in Arusha and see the women with the complete black with only eyes, to where other ones are just wearing very colorful clothes and open face. So there's different sects of Muslims that are living within the country. Yeah.
And we'll be around. We can interact more in between and maybe at Haas's afterwards.
Okay. Thank you so
again.
much.
Thank you.
Oh, did you have something?
I was just curious how you ended up in Tanzania, and if you ever found out why the government didn't want you.
The government thing, what gets stamped on our permits is that a Tanzanian can do your job. That's the official communication. Yeah, I can understand that to some degree. There are college kids that are selling apples on the street. I mean, there's job challenges there. But we've also heard that there's a law that says residents, like foreigners, can only live in the country for 5 years. That's a law on the books that was never enforced, except for this past president, who then decided he started enforcing laws that were on the books that never got. There was a lot of corruption in the former governments, so some of these permits were issued maybe in the wrong way, like a business person that would have paid twice or 3 times as much for a permit got a missions permit or whatever. So there was corruption that they were working through as well. And then there was also people that said he was anti-colonialism. But again, he was denying everyone, even Africans, the thing. As far as why we went to Tanzania, we just sensed that God was calling us to something, and I initially was just going to go over on a short-term trip. I was an electrician, union electrician, before we went to Tanzania, and thought I'd use my skills on just a short-term missions trip. But JoAnn said, what about me? And I said, look, if you want to come, you can come. If you don't, no pressure. And when she said she wanted to come, then I said, well, we might want to do this with some intentionality. What if we go overseas and we feel like God's calling us, but that's not the right place? That trip would not be totally wasted, but it'd be a little bit. So she said, okay. So I called CMF and I said, look, here, I have a heart for discipleship. JoAnn has medical background. We're not sure whether God's just calling us to a short term or something longer, but we don't want to give false understanding. Is there somebody that might be looking for those skills that you know? And automatically he said, you need to go to Tanzania. And so I'm like, okay. 2 questions. First of all, when he said Tanzania, which I knew this was wrong, but this is what came into my mind, the Tasmanian devil. I don't know why, but that's the first thing I thought of. And I knew that was the wrong country, but I had no idea where Tanzania was. And so he said it's in East Africa, and the team is looking for somebody right now to come in and do discipleship training. So that's kind of how we ended up there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Let's close with prayer and we'll have some fellowship. Father, we thank you so much for what we're able to hear and the encouragement, and that the work will continue. And we just pray for your guidance and your leadership.